Morning students. Today we are going to learn about types of force. Before watching this video, you should complete video 1 and video 2 which I uploaded. Then you have to start this video. So the before starting this topic, I want to give some instructions. Since we have a proper timetable from today, that is 7:30 to 8:15, you are going to have science classes. What you have to utilize this 45 minutes properly. For that, 7:30 to 7:45, you watch these videos which I am going to upload. Then 7:45 to 8 o'clock, read the textbook of this topic and make a notes in your classwork, write it properly. Then 8 to 8:15, solve the homework questions. Right? And if you have any doubts, in 8 to 8:15, you can message me WhatsApp. I will clarify from there. Right? Now, let us go for today's topic. So, topics to be covered: types of forces. In types of forces, there are two types. One is contact force. In contact force, we have a muscular force and frictional force. Another type is non-contact force. In that, we have a magnetic force, electrostatic force, and gravitational force. So mainly today we are going to learn only the contact force. First we need to understand what is contact force, right? So name itself says contact. Contact means when the two objects are in contact with each other. The meaning of contact here is the objects are in direct contact with each other. That means they are touching each other. Then only this force will come into play. Right? So contact force is a force that is applied by object in contact with each other. In contact with each other. They will be in contact with each other. The contact force acts on a point of direct contact between the two objects. Always whenever this contact force is there, that means the two objects are in direct contact. Right? So for example, we can give for a contact force, muscular force is a best example. Muscular force. So if you want to lift the textbook which is there on your table, right? First you have to touch that textbook, then you have to apply your muscle force to lift the textbook, right? Without touching that, can you lift the textbook? No, it is not possible. For that you need to touch, that means you need to come into contact with that textbook. That's why this muscular force is called as contact force, right? For example, the boy is doing the weightlifting. In the weightlifting, so he has to touch that object first, then he has to apply his muscular force to lift that object, right? So there's an example for muscular force. Suppose in the second one, the cows are pulling the cart. To pull the cart, the cows needs to apply their muscular force. Without applying muscular force, they cannot pull the cart, and the cows needs to be come in contact with the cart, right? So that's why this is called as muscular. This is called as contact force. And how this muscular force comes from? The muscular force comes from the muscle contraction. Due to muscle contraction, this muscular force will generate. Right? You can see in the third picture how the muscles will contract. Due to that contract, the force will come from your muscles. Right? So let us define the what is muscular force. The force resulting due to the action of muscles is known as a muscular force. The force which comes due to action of muscles is called as a muscular force. For example, many examples you can give. I listed a few, like lifting your school bag. It's due to muscular force. Lifting a bucket of water. It is a muscular force activity involving movement of our body. For example, you want to run, you want to walk, you want to bend your body, you need a muscular force, right? If you want to play, you need a muscular force. If you want to kick the football, you need a muscular force, right? Suppose, for example, like the fourth example is while breathing, inhale and exhale. There also you need a muscular force. When you inhale, there is an action of diaphragm, which you learned in the last year respiration chapter. So how we inhale and exhale. When you inhale and exhale, there is a movement of the chest. The rib cage will move due to the action of diaphragm which is present. Right? There also we need a muscular force. Suppose you're heating food. When you're heating food after chewing, you want to push that food inside. So for that also you need a muscular force. There is also an action of muscles. So these are different type examples which I given for muscular force. And I suggest you to list five more examples from your daily life for a muscular force. In your classwork, you have to list five more examples. And now let us go for another type of contact force. So that is frictional force. Before I define this frictional force, let us watch this video. So here the boy is playing the football, right? So first he will kick the football with little force, but the football will go to little distance and it will stop. And he kicks with little more force, but it goes and stops. If he kicks with little force, it goes to little distance and stops. If he kicks with more force, it goes little longer and it stops. Finally, it is stopping it. Why it is stopping? What is the reason for its stop? If it is something is stopping, that means there is another force which is pushing that football opposite direction. The boy is pushing the ball towards the right. So some other force is has to push that football towards the left. It has to be. That means the force which is changing this state of motion, it is bringing the state of motion to a state of rest, and which acts opposite to the applied force. So that is called as frictional force, right? The force of friction always acts on a moving object and its direction is opposite to the direction of motion. It's always opposite to the direction of motion. If the object is moving towards the left, the force of friction will be towards the right. It is always opposite to it. And it is responsible for changing the state of motion of object, like motion to rest. Like in the previous video, we have seen that the football, when it kicks, it was moving, but after some time it comes to a rest due to action of friction. Right? And we call this as a contact force. The reason is whenever the football is in contact with the ground, the ground is going to exert a frictional force. The ground is going to exert a frictional force opposite to an applied force. If the ball is not in touch with the ground, it will move further. If you roll down the ball, it will stop. But if you kick the ball in air, it goes little further and it will stop. The reason is the ground is applying that frictional force, and to apply frictional force, the object should in contact with the uh, two objects should be in contact with each other. And anyway, we learn this frictional force in our next chapter thoroughly. We go with what are the types of frictional forces exist, and what is the air can exert a frictional force, say water can exert a frictional force. We learn more about it, how to reduce and increase the frictional force in our next chapter. The force which acts opposite to applied force is called as a frictional force. That you must remember here. The next we go a little more in detail. Okay, so these are the homework questions. The first one is, why does a boat come to rest when we stop rowing it? Second one, define muscular force and frictional force. Name the force. Third one is, name the force which tends to slow down the objects or keep them moving. This all these three homework questions today.